Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a nightcap edition of Birds 365, Wednesday, August 21st here. The final day of training camp is officially in the books. The Eagles are now moving into the 2024 football season. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday evening as training camp concludes?
Yeah, it was a bittersweet day. Last practice we get to see. We won't get to see another practice in full till the spring of 2025. So it's an extended period. And that's really the demarcation line we're talking about. So I don't know how important it is to anybody other than the preparation goes behind closed doors, so to speak. So it's not like the Eagles are going to stop preparing for the season. So I do think it gets a little bit overblown, but yeah, end of training camp, and Jalen Hurts is not perfect. He did not make history. He did not get a make-believe record, Zander, Krause. So yeah, people got upset about that. Darius Slay with the interception.
Yeah,
although I will say this, and this tells you what nonsense these types of things are. There were a couple of people saying, it should have been blown dead as a sack for Bryce Huff. So if you want to blow it dead and call it a sack, technically you never got an interception. So
I saw that. Jeff McMullen tweeted that, and I saw some people looking for clarification from Elliott Shore Parks, but yeah, they called it the interception. So look, I have no feelings one way or the other about it. It's training camp. Jalen threw an interception in training camp. I don't care either way. I do think it's a positive thing from it, though, that he's protected the ball. We're not a team where Jalen Hurts has to be the greatest guy on the field every single day. We have a talented offense, and I think the fact that he's prioritizing protecting the football is the most positive part about it. But that's my take. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and cry that he threw an interception. I don't care.
Well, that's why I'm talking about it in such terms. I find it hilarious that people are going to Elliott as the arbiter of all things training camp football. I mean, I say it all the time on this show. Practice is practice. You have to understand what it is. And for people that don't, that's fine. I mean, yeah, that's fine, but it's not important. If you throw an interception, not important. And to your point about taking care of the football, that's one thing I said the entire offseason. I'm not concerned because he always takes care of the football. There's a randomness to turnovers in the NFL that you cannot control as much as Nick Sirianni would like to control it. Tip balls, what you're trying, and crazy things happening. What you're trying to prevent is the obvious mistakes. And if you go back to the two best examples of that would be the Jets game, egregious interception at the end of the game that cost the game by Jalen Hurts, and the Seattle game, same thing. Those are the things you're trying to prevent.
I think that fumble right in the playoff game as well. He took the safety. Was that what it was?
That game was such a blowout. I don't know. Yeah,
I think that happened early though, didn't it? It happened in the first half.
Yeah, that game wasn't going their way. But and I said this about Dak Prescott the year prior, who had a bad season when it came to turning the football over. And Eagles fans are kind of spiking the football. And I said, be careful, because his history says that will not continue. And it didn't continue. We regress back to his mean. I expect the same thing for Jalen Hurts. He typically doesn't turn it over a lot. And I don't think he'll turn it over a lot this year. It has nothing to do with training camp. Nothing.
Agreed. And like I said in the beginning there, I do think it's a positive thing, because we do have a lot of good players on that offense. We don't need him to be, forcing things that don't need to be forced. And I think Jalen is a smart guy. I think he's smart enough to know that. I thought his press conference today was great. John, I will say the other takeaway, I had from the press conference, Jalen just, I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if it's just what I'm seeing, but the guy just seems cool, calm, and collected again. He seems like he's really found his place. Not that he ever didn't have it, but I think you saw a little bit more of an uptight guy last year. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but he just seems loose. He seems confident. He seems good to me in the press conferences. He seems like he really found his mojo. He found his voice in the locker room. Not that he ever didn't have it, but maybe he's reached a new level here with Kelsey gone, and it's kind of offense now fully. I just think he sounds better to me in the press conferences. I don't know if he does to you, but that's my takeaway.
No, I mean, he's always been that guy. So to me, it hasn't changed at all. He's always been cool, calm, collected. I think he's healthier. I think he feels better. I think he was banged up, and he kind of alluded to that. He never talks about his injuries. And at one point, he told us to stop asking last year because he wasn't going to talk about him. But I think it was, he was dealing with some stuff. Even if you go back to early in the season before his knee injury, I don't think he was the same, whether it was the ankles previously, he wasn't showing the same zip. This year, he seems to be healthier. And I think that's what it's about. And he admitted, he said, I think I'm in a better place physically. Obviously, I had some nicks there throughout the year. And I told you guys not to ask me about, but to deal with those things, I think all those things have made me better, blah, blah. Then he went into the cliches, but he admitted it. I think I'm in a better place physically. I think that's what it's about.
Yeah, looks healthier, seems more comfortable. That's my take. John might not agree, but that's where I'm going to go with it. John, let's get into the practice today, man. Last one, Johnny Mac. Before we break it down, you kind of hit it in the open, but I'm going to ask you to rehash it. What runs through your head when you walk out of there? You're not going to see this team now, like in the same capacity till the spring of next year. What goes through your head? I mean, you spend a lot of time, John. This becomes your life, how much time you guys spend down there and how hard you work. And, sometimes I don't think all of our viewers understand it to no fault of their own, but, I think have a chance to see how hard you guys work and how much you put into it. And I respect it and I appreciate it. But what kind of thoughts run through your head when you're walking out of there on the last day of the 2024 training camp?
It's a little bit of relief because it's a grind,
right?
Especially, I'm getting older. It's a young man's game, so to speak. It's not like it once was. I mean, when we used to do two a days, those days were, I'm amazed. Forget about the players. I'm amazed how we did them. And from that standpoint, but it is a little bit disappointing at the same time because it's not, also back then we would watch practices at times during the regular season. So there wasn't that immediate end. But the positive is you get more access to the players during the upcoming period than you do. In training camp, it's more controlled. They bring players to us. We're not allowed to go in the locker room. So it's a give and take. When the regular season starts, we got far more access to the players. And that is, a better place, to be honest, to gather information, even though you're not able to watch the actual practices. So it's a little bit of a give and take.
Yeah, good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Let's get into the practice today. You mentioned Jalen Hurts did not get his streak, but outside of that, what did you see from practice today? What were your overall takeaways from today's week, or what was it, day 16, or was today 15?
16. 16.
You can't lose track on the last day. Come on, Zander.
15 here, one in Foxborough. But Kenny Gainwell, man. Woo! What's been interesting about this training camp? You've seen some great practices. I mean, and I just wrote about this on SI. It's like Allen Iverson rules apply. It is just practice, but you've seen some great practices from individual players. A.J. Brown, Nakobe Dean a couple days ago. Kenny Gainwell was in the zone today. I've been covering the Eagles full time since 2016. And before that, I was down there quite a bit from 2013 on. So it's been a long time. I have never seen a running back practice as impressive as I saw today from Kenny Gainwell.
That is a massive statement.
I know. It was unbelievable. We're talking about Jalen Hurts. They did a 2-minute drill near the end of practice. I asked Jalen about Kenny today. He caught every ball in the drive that went for a touchdown. He ran. He touched it on every play. And the final play was a diving, more like a sliding catch in the corner of the end zone that would be good for, Justin Jefferson to make. And this is a running back. It was just, and that's what Jalen called it. He made that unbelievable catch in the corner. And that was maybe not his best play. If you go all the way back to, for people that remember, the people that listen all the time, or people that were there, the only public practice at Lincoln Financial Field, when he ghosted Nakobe Dean in the open field, and then he got him on the wheel route. That was a pretty impressive practice. But that ghost move, which you bring up Allen Iverson in practice, it's also, that's sort of like what he did to Nakobe Dean. He broke him down like it was Allen Iverson. He did the same thing to Devin White today. Just left him, ghosted him in the middle of the field. Just like one of Iverson's best crossovers. That was another highlight. Then he was in the red zone. He had a great jump cut on a run. One of Kellen Moore's best plays of camp. He had Kenny Gainwell lined up outside. He used him in motion to come back in the backfield. It looked like play action. It looked like he was going to block somebody, but he wasn't blocking somebody. He was just leaking out of the middle of the line and sort of hiding. And it was the easiest touchdown you'll ever see. And Devin White got caught in the trash trying to get to Kenny Gainwell. And even in pass protection, which has been a weakness of his, he stoned Nakobe Dean on a blitz, and Nakobe's had a great camp as a blitzer. Unbelievable practice.
Gonna have to talk to you. We're gonna have to have a running back segment after we get through our initial breakdown. I don't want to dive too much in because I want to get the full update on the practice so I can create, the highlight for the show afterward, or, for your breakdown of day 16. But boy, John, that's some intriguing stuff that Kenny Gainwell's playing that good. I got to wonder what kind of role he's going to have on this team this year, even with Saquon Barkley in front of him. But we'll talk a lot more about that later. Good to hear Kenny Gainwell looked so good today. What else did you see from an offensive standpoint, Johnny Mac? Start with Jalen Hurts. I know he threw the interception, but outside of that, how'd he look today?
Well, I am, I know a lot of people do the thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways, whatever they do about Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's had a thumbs down through 16 practices. Now, there have been some great ones, and there have been some mediocre ones. And I would say as you headed toward the end of practice, say 13, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range, it hasn't been as good as it was earlier. But I don't think he's had a bad practice this entire summer. And that continued today. There was the interception, but, he threw it late in the middle of the field. Slay kind of baited him. And he's done that in the past. He's a very good corner. But, who cares? He had a great go route to Devontae Smith for a touchdown. on Kaylee Ringo, who's sort of, that ebb and flow of training camp. He's sort of on a downtick again. Last couple practices, the Gainwell stuff, the 2-minute drive, solid stuff. Early, though, they were struggling with pass protection. Jalen Carter, who's another guy we don't talk about as much as we should, we talk about, but he's like the defensive A.J. Brown. Like, he's in the backfield all the time against a really good offensive line. And he was creating some havoc early, which made it a little bit difficult for the offense, but they settled down. And yeah, I mean, Kenny was the star of practice, so they were doing some things offensively.
What about the update on the offensive line, Johnny Mac, with Becton? Was he out there? What was the health update on that offensive line?
Yeah, Becton's out there. He's been out there the past 2 days, so he's fine. No issues from when he left practice a couple days ago, other than the daily stuff. And obviously, he's got an issue in general with that knee, and he wears the bulky brace that he doesn't like to talk about. We just talked about Jalen Hurts. A lot of players don't want to talk about injuries because they suck, so they don't like to talk about them. But yeah, he's obviously got something, and have to keep an eye on it just in a general sense. Same thing with Landon Dickerson and his history. So those guys have been banged up, but they're out there every day. Lane, occasionally gets that Veterans Day, but he was out there. Cam's out there. So everybody's out there from a first team standpoint. Interesting move today. The Eagles brought back Jason Poe, and they cut CJ Uzama. So
and we had Uzama on the 53 last night, didn't we, John?
Yeah. I mean, I was wavering whether to keep 2 or 3, but I think when you use as much 12 personnel as Kellen Moore does, you can't go into a season with just 2 tight ends, and I don't think the Eagles will. So now I think that's another position they'll be looking to add as we get down to the cut down, and maybe they check the waiver wire and they see what tight ends shake loose elsewhere. EJ Jenkins has had a nice camp, and he got banged up in the Patriots game, and he played very well. But he's back. But boy, man, I don't know if you have backups with Grant Calcaterra and EJ Jenkins. EJ's a former receiver, so that's kind of why I would lean towards CJ Uzama. But I also always said, look, he's 31. He didn't play well in his last season with the Jets. That's why they cut him. And he also had some injuries. So, when you get to that age, maybe there's nothing left. And he did not have a good summer. Ultimately, I lean towards, well, yeah, but from my perspective, he's only here for the Jack Stoll role to block. And the Eagles want to go in a different direction, and we'll see if they're happy with EJ Jenkins. Maybe Albert Okwuegbunam's still not practicing. He's always in the mix because Howie traded for him, but he's not practicing. McAllen Castles was an undrafted kid that they liked, but he hurt his leg at the Lincoln Financial Field practice. He's already on injured reserve. So, and they brought in a couple guys late who aren't really candidates for the 53. Kevin Folsch and Armani Rogers. They need to add something at that position. And I think they will add something at that position.
We'll see what they end up doing there, Johnny Mac. Good breakdown there on that part of practice. Let's move into that defensive side of the ball, John. What'd you see from them today? Who are the starters at the key positions, and what stood out on defense today?
Well, the default setting has been Devin White and Zach Bond, and that continued. But for the first time, Nakobe Dean got more first-team reps than anybody else.
Mm.
So I think that's trending where it should be. And that's, probably going to be Nakobe Dean and Devin White. In the opener, I still think that's the way it's going to go. I do think there's going to be roles for Zach Bond, and they will try to get Jeremiah Trotter on the field for, maybe a series here and there. But I do think that's trending towards Nakobe as it should. And then corner is looking like it's going to be. And again, boy, I was talking to this with our buddy Martin Frank, and everybody's like, one of my pet peeves. Well, base, Quinion's going to be outside, and I'm like, well, base isn't base like it used to be in 1975. The Packers play the way the Packers play, and there's going to be a bunch of receivers on the field. So there's going to be 3 corners on the field, probably 80% of the time, conservatively, against Green Bay. And when that happens, it's probably going to be Slay and Rodgers outside, Quinion Mitchell inside. But when there are 2 corners on the field, it will be Slay and Mitchell. So Mitchell's going to be the 3 down corner. Mitchell's going to be the guy out there for every play. And ultimately, obviously, they'll try to get Cooper DeJean ramped up as quickly as possible. But, yeah.
How did he look today, John Cooper?
Well, he didn't look as bad as he did on Sunday, but that would be difficult. I do think, I do think he's playing out of position, even though people don't think he's playing out of position. And it's going to take more time than I would have hoped. But there's still plenty of time before September 6th. What do we got? 16 days. Unfortunately, things get complicated a little bit by going to Brazil because it screws up the schedule. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Let me pull up my calendar since we got time. We got a 2-hour show, but obviously tomorrow's going to be a walkthrough, and that's a shift from the schedule. By the way, the Eagles changed to a green practice. One of the reasons why they shifted the schedule. Today was essentially a scrimmage, so it was a heavy workload day, especially for the key players who are not going to play in the final preseason game. So they have a walkthrough tomorrow, a walkthrough Friday, and the game's on Saturday. And typically, players would have off Sunday, and they would come back and practice Monday before cutdown day on the 27th. The Eagles are not going to practice on Sunday or Monday before the cuts because they don't have a Labor Day this year because of the Brazil trip, and that's screwing the schedule up. So that's sort of the week ahead.
How early are they going to Brazil, John? Do you know yet?
Yeah, they're going Wednesday. They're not going to be there long.
I think, isn't it in the past, some teams that have gone overseas, they go like a week early? Or was that just Jacksonville because they had a couple games out there, I guess?
Very early when they started to go to London, teams would go for the entire week, and it would be a whole thing. But now most teams go in late.
Eagles want to limit their Sao Paulo exposure.
Well, not only that, it's a matter of practicality and the fact that it's a Friday game, which is weird to begin with.
Yeah, really weird.
They're missing, a typical NFL week is the big practices on Wednesday. Practice Thursday, practice Friday, and a walkthrough Saturday before the game. That's a typical NFL week. While the Eagles are traveling Wednesday and a very long trip, they have to do a few things for the NFL's international partners, but not much. And then the game, and then they're flying back right after the game. So they're basically going to, they have to practice Sunday, Monday, and they'll probably do a little bit on Tuesday, but that's just speculation before they leave on Wednesday. So the whole thing is screwed up. That game is awful on so many levels for the Philadelphia Eagles. It just is. It just is. And on the other hand, Jeffrey's embraced it, so it's not like he's part of the reason.
Has no choice, though, right?
No, I don't know. He's fought back for many years. He didn't want to go to London. Never mind Brazil. I think his mind is open up from a business standpoint. He knows it's important for the league, even though it sucks for the Eagles. So he's biting the bullet. And, still the biggest point to me that I bring up all the time is Green Bay is going to be good. And you're giving up a home game against projected to be one of the better teams in the NFC. Maybe they aren't, injuries, blah, 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 can strike anybody. But on paper, they look pretty good. And the game would have been here. It's a home game. And, you want to play the best teams at home. Especially when you have the home field advantage that the Eagles have.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Can I ask all of our viewers right now? We got 250 almost of you guys on YouTube, plenty of others on our other social platforms. Can we get that like button rolling? We need some love for Johnny Mac for a great training camp, covering everything all off season long, working his butt off, doing night shows, doing morning shows, driving down to the link. Smash that like button, everybody. I want to have a big like night tonight. To help push the show, to show some love for our man, John McMullen here. Johnny Mac, any other takeaways on the practice today, specifically on the practice that stood out, whether it's a player, a certain play? What else happened today? Day 16.
I'll tell you, one of the most interesting parts was for the second time, and he ended camp with these sort of one-on-one battles between players, and it's really fun. The players get into it. The whole team gathers around, and Nick sort of calls out two people. And, depending on what they are, to give you an example, the first rep was Britton Covey against Cooper DeJean. So obviously it's a one-on-one receiver against defensive back. Britton kind of beat him, as he typically has since he came back. Britton's a very good route runner. Bad throw. Couldn't, the players were all gathered around. Couldn't even tell who threw it. But it was a bad throw. Britton had him beat, but, win for the defense because of the bad throw. Next up was AJ against Quinion, which was, Slay said, Quinion was chomping at the bit because he got beat by AJ the day before. And he had good coverage on AJ, and it was off-target throw by Jalen. Jalen did throw that one. So another win for the defense. And of course, Mitchell
Quinion gets a win on AJ. Love it.
Yeah. And he stared down AJ, did the whole thing. He's got he's such an interesting guy because he's so quiet, but then when he wins a rep, he gets very CJ like and starts to celebrate and get in people's faces. Then it was pass rusher Nolan Smith and Darian Kennard, and Nolan won that one. Nice little swim move. Which really, really fired up the defense when he won that route. And the final one was a series, and this was one of the funnest things you're ever going to see. For the last one, there were 3 reps. It was Ty Davis-Price, who's a backup running back, against Ben Van Sumeren, linebacker. So it was pass pro at first, and they did back-to-back reps, and Ben got a little bit of sort of push, more like a bull rush, but Ty Davis Price held up pretty well on both reps. And then then they changed it to Ben Van Sumeren, who, by the way, at Michigan at the start of his career was an offensive player, and he was running a route like an offensive player, and it was unbelievable. He dipped his shoulder inside and just completely shook. It was
Ben showing some offensive prowess out there.
It was unbelievable. I kid you not. It was unbelievable. Everybody was going nuts, and Kenny Pickett missed the throw.
Oh, come on, Kenny. You got to be kidding me, John. You're telling me Ben Van Sumeren runs a route on Ty Davis Price, and Kenny Pickett can't hit the throw?
And the funny thing was that our buddy Andrew DeCecco was tweeting it out, Ben running a route. And all the fans are, oh, you got it wrong. He's a defensive player. And it's like, we know, dude. We know what's going on.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, it was I wish people could see. It was a tremendous route.
Dang, I would love to see that footage.
Yeah. I hope the Eagles put it up. And Kenny missed the throw. I don't know if Ben would have caught it, but he missed the throw.
Start the Tanner McKee buses, everybody. Start the Tanner McKee buses. Kenny can't hit Ben Van Sumeren. You got to be kidding me. Now, that's great, though, John, to hear that. I always say for people that watch our show, I believe that they're the most educated Eagles fans because of you, John. You talk about every player from the top to the bottom of the roster, and you've talked about this player a lot, and I'm sure not many others have talked about him as much as you have. You think he's going to have a role in this football team this year?
Oh yeah, he's one of the core special teams guy. He's going to be one of the best special teams players the Eagles have. I saw, Jimmy Kempski said he's got a little bit of Brian Bremen in him. He's that type of player. He's killing people on special teams. And I know that doesn't get a lot of press, but he's really good to the point where, at the start of camp, the Eagles signed Oren Burks, who's, been a pretty proven NFL player. Not only as a backup linebacker, as a third linebacker, famously went into the Super Bowl when Trey Greenlaw got hurt. But he's also been a good special teams player. And you said, well, how is Ben Van Sumeren going to make this team? And Oren got hurt. Now it's the point to me, how is Oren Burks going to make this team because of Ben Van Sumeren? So breaking news, by the way, former Eagle, former Giant, former Viking, but Linval Joseph signing with the Dallas Cowboys.
Holy moly. How old is he? 36?
Yeah, Linval's getting up there.
Linval's
one of the most powerful players in football, though. Kelsey would rave of that.
35. He's 35, and so he'll be 36 in October.
Yeah. Good guy, dude. Good dude.
John, he was great when he was here. He came in here for a specific role, him and Sue, and they were both great that year. At least I thought they were.
Well, obviously he was older. When Linval was with the Giants and Vikings and he was making Pro Bowls, he was arguably the best nose tackle in football. And I always said he was the guy that the Eagles want Jordan Davis to become. And early, not when he was here. He wasn't that same, but he certainly helped them. The Eagles were having a really difficult time when Jordan Davis got injured because they didn't have that type of player. And he kind of settled things down. But in his prime, what I'm talking about, and that's when Jason Kelsey was talking about him, that's what he was famous for. He was the strongest guy in the NFL. That was his reputation. And that's, you can imagine, there's a lot of strong dudes in the NFL. And he's so powerful. But a good guy, good player. And yeah, he's keeping it going. Unfortunately for the Dallas Cowboys, I guess for Eagles fans.
Yeah, a last-ditch effort for the Cowboys. We'll see what ends up happening with everything there. John, any other things before we hit our first commercial break worthy of discussing from today's practice 16, the final touches on training camp, at least in front of the reporters? Any other things worth mentioning from today?
Yeah, a little bit disappointed the way the offense finished up the summer after starting so well. And a lot of it has to do with, some poor play from the second, third team. So, but you see some of the injuries and where they're coming and some of the offensive line issues, and guys missing practices. So that was a little, the reps, Kenny hasn't looked good. Tanner hasn't looked good since, the Patriots game in practice. And, that has more to do with the reps, and they get very muddy because their blocking is poor. The depth of receiver is poor. And then you add to it that John Ross is out with a concussion. Johnny Wilson's out with a concussion.
That's a long time now for Johnny Wilson, by the way. That's over a week since he got that concussion. That's maybe something to keep an eye on, right?
Well, John got it after Johnny. Johnny got it in the practice with the Patriots. John got it in the game.
Right. So technically Johnny had it first, but both of those
Johnny,
guys were still out. Yeah.
Yeah. But they've both been in. And that, Johnny's going to make the team, Johnny Wilson. John Ross probably hurts him pretty dramatically. But we'll see how that shakes out. Now tight end without, CJ Uzama not working out. They look really thin at tight end.
We're going to talk about that later on in the show. Right, running backs I want to talk about, and then tight ends I also want to talk about. We will get
I should mention that the guys who got injured on Sunday, I mentioned Dallas. It's an oblique injury. But he was out there
in the injury report today. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. In Dallas, he was out there watching, so I don't think it's terribly serious, because if it were, they wouldn't let him stand on the sidelines and watch. So that was a positive. Jalix Hunt also was a new addition with an oblique injury.
Oblique is where, John? Here on the side of your rib, by your ribs?
Yeah.
And
that could be like, if it's serious, it could be like a 4 or 6 week injury.
Right.
But I don't, by the way Dallas was moving and looking, I don't think it's terribly serious, but I'm not a doctor. Trevor Keegan hurt his hip. He left practice on what day are we? I said
it's Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, Trevor left, Dallas left. So I apologize for that. But Trevor looked potentially more serious when he got hurt in practice. It was noticeable, limping off. Turns out it was a hip. But the positive is that he was out there also watching and didn't seem to be dramatically in distress or anything of that nature. So hopefully it's not long-term with him either. So those were the new guys added to the injury list. And Dallas Goedert, man. Yeah, they need him out there, because tight end they got some depth issues on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We talked about that today on the National Football Show, and I was on there with that tight end, and I kind of had a realization. I'm like, wait a second. Dallas Goedert's a guy that's been injured. They're going to use, it seems like they're using more 12 personnel. Is tight end 2 more important than wide receiver 3? It's possible to think about, considering Calcaterra had 4 catches last year. I don't know, worth a conversation, but we'll get to that after the break, John. We're going to talk about the tight end position. Real quick on the way out, would you register this then as a defensive win day?
No, because of Kenny.
Okay.
I mean,
I thought with your comment there about them the offense being a little bit
disappointed. Well, and there are plenty of good defense, a lot of good pass rush, a lot of good Jalen Carter, as you mentioned, Bryce Huff might have had a sack and take away the interception, blah, blah, blah. A lot of good pass rush early, a lot of good work from second, third teams. But when you have a practice like Kenny Gainwell had, it kind of tilts it towards the offense.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Sydney family drops in the super chat. Goddard is so underrated. Sydney, thanks for the super chat, man. We appreciate it. We hope it'll be interesting to see Dallas Goddard this year. I think he's going to have a big year with Kellen Moore, but we'll see what he's able to do. John, let's get to our commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk Kenny Gainwell, Johnny Mac. What you said at the open is too good to pass up for some meat on the bone to talk about Kenny Gainwell, Saquon Barkley, the whole running back room. So we'll do that. We'll talk tight end too and the backup tight ends, some final touches. And then, John, I'm throwing this on you now. I want you to have a chance to think about it. In the last 30 minutes or so of the show today, we're going to do 5 players, stock up after camp, 5 players, stock down. I want you to have a chance to think about that, but that's what I want to go. And it doesn't have to be 5, but I want to get your biggest guys who stock up, looked great at camp, and you think are going to have a big season or at least a bigger role than previously anticipated. And then I want to go stock down guys that didn't look good that we were hoping to look good. So we'll do all that in hour number 2. I want to thank everybody for being here. Up to 70 likes already, guys. I said it a little earlier. I want to have a massive like show for John McMullen. He worked hard through training camp, doing multiple shows a day, doing the night show after being down there all day. He's working his butt off for us here at JAKIB Sports to give us the content and you guys the information. So we appreciate Johnny Mac. Let's smash that like button tonight. Let's get to 200 likes on Birds 365, already at 71. So appreciate you guys for being in here. Birds 365 will be back in 3 minutes on the other side.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow, to get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Wednesday nightcap edition of Birds 365, a 6 to 8 p.m. show. John, it might be our last nightcap edition for a while, right? Training camp is now in the books. Is that correct? It'll be our last nightcap for a little bit?
I don't know. I don't want to say that until I see the sort of regular season schedule.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit hinky because of Brazil. So we'll see. But yeah, typically when they ship to regular season mode, practices usually noonish or so. So there's time to do the morning show and get down there. A little bit different on Fridays when Nick has an off the record with us. So we might be doing Friday night shows. So if you look at it that way. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Let's get into the running back talk. I want to talk about this, and you're going to laugh at this, I think, John, but I had a little bit, I don't want to call it an epiphany, but I want to say it was pretty close to an epiphany where we're talking about the running backs today on the National Football Show. And I just had a realization, and I'm like, boy, Saquon Barkley, he had 900 touches at Penn State. He had 1,250 touches in New York through 6 years. You know, he's dealing with a little bit of an injury. I don't know how real the injury is, but, you know, I don't want to make nothing of it because this is a guy that has a lot of tread on the tires. I had a little bit of concern about Saquon Barkley today, John, when I was thinking about it. I'm like, boy.
Well, I'm disappointed. First of all, I'm disappointed that you had that epiphany.
I know, because you've been telling me all summer.
Yeah. I've been talking about the number of touches and just the history of running backs with that number of touches. I don't want to re-legislate the Eagles signing of Saquon Barkley. He was out of character for them. But they believe in the player, and they think, look, as a foundational piece, it's probably a bad situation for a team like the New York Giants. For a team like the Eagles, in a luxury piece, it might be the final piece of the puzzle and everything might fall into place. But yeah, I think if you're not looking at the number of touches and the history of running backs who have that many touches, I think you're kind of sticking your head in the sand a little bit if you're not worried about it somewhat.
Well, yeah, I don't want to rehash the signing of him, but the reason I was asked about, are you concerned with him?
Oh, now here's what I'm concerned about. Like, and I get it. I'm not, and people think I hate Barkley for whatever reason, yet nobody thinks he's going to do as much as I think. So, people can hypocritically get to their end game any way they want to get to their end game. But, I think he's going to have a good year, and I think he's going to be the Eagles' top running back. But I will say this. He never does stuff in practice like Kenny Gainwell does in practice. I mean, isn't that weird?
It is. No, you're right. It is.
Like A.J. Brown makes plays in practices. Devontae Smith makes plays in practice every day. Saquon had the wheel route in New England. But you can count on one hand.
Yeah, it doesn't stick out to you like some of the other plays have, right?
And Kenny did that in one day. I swear to you, this is not hyperbole. Kenny made more plays in one day that he's made in 16 practices.
What? You're telling me Kenny Gainwell today made more plays out there than you've seen from Saquon through 16
splash plays? Yes, splash plays. Wow. I'm talking about splash plays. His play against N'Kobe and Lincoln Financial Field. His play against also N'Kobe. Both plays against N'Kobe and Lincoln Financial Field. Today it was against Devin White. Both plays. Devin White, then Zach Bond. Plus, you had the jump cut and the run. And I'm not even talking about, the pass pro and that kind of stuff, which Kenny's typically not good at. You don't see that. We'll have guys who were at practice. You can ask them. You don't see that. Now, at first, I would say, and I've said many times on the show, well, they're using him as a decoy, and they have been using him as a decoy. But then, all right, he's got a load management day, and Kenny's getting all the first team reps, and all of a sudden they're getting the football to Kenny. Why?
Kenny Gainwell might have a bigger role in this team, John, than we're thinking. Because, and the reason I brought up the carries point wasn't, I don't want to rehash the signing or anything like that, but, they kind of kept him out today for whatever reason. He left practice yesterday, I think it was. He's getting his back massaged or whatever was happening there. And I was asked, look, are you concerned about the injuries? And I said, well, I don't think they're serious injuries, but I would be remiss to say I didn't think it mattered or didn't think it would be worth noting. This is a guy that has a lot of tread on the tires.
Here's what I'll say about the injury. He wasn't listed on the injury report. He did not participate in team drills, which is why Kenny got all the reps and had all the opportunities. My understanding from the organization is that it was a load management thing from their perspective. But he was out there getting stretched out by trainers again by himself, which is not, everybody doesn't have their own personal trainer. So clearly he's dealing with something. Now, Jason Peters in his later years was famous, for needing to stretch out basically for a half hour before he could get going. So it doesn't mean it's a serious injury, but obviously there's some kind of discomfort if he's out there getting stretched one-on-one with a trainer in 2 consecutive practices. So it's something to monitor.
You think they start slow with him in the year, kind of ramp him up and monitor how much touches, how many touches
I think there's going to be a pitch count on him.
Yeah, I do too.
To try to get him as far as you can. And I think they I know Nick does, but I think Kellen Moore is quickly liking Kenny Gainwell as well. So I think they like Kenny Gainwell. I'm not saying, and I know everybody's going to run with the baton, and I'm not saying Kenny's better than Saquon. I'm not saying Kenny's going to play more than Saquon, but they like him, and they think they have good depth at the position, and you need more than one running back. And if you look at the depth at running back compared to the depth at wide receiver, the depth at tight end, it's pretty damn good. But yeah, it's one practice, and it was, sometimes I always use the NBA comparison. So I always use the Vinnie Johnson comparison for old school NBA fans, the microwave. You get hot for one practice. Doesn't mean you're Isaiah Thomas and you're consistently good.
All right.
And Vinnie Johnson did today. And, Vinny could go off for 40. That's what Kenny did today. Can he do that consistently? Well, he hasn't been able to. But there's enough talent there. The quarterback loves him. He's on a contract year, so he knows he's got to perform. And he's a good player. And they trust him.
John, you started the show today by saying you've been covering this team since 2016.
I've never seen a running back practice like that.
You've never seen a running back practice like that since 2013. You were kind of in from 13 to 16 some days, and then 16 on, you've been a full-time reporter of this football team. You've never seen a running back practice.
Nope, never. It's one of that's it. I've seen some of the best practices from individual players this year. It's been fun to watch. AJ had one. N'Kobe had one. Zach, Zach said it was his best practice ever. And this to me, Kenny, it was, It's been fun to watch some of these guys have these types of practices.
Crazy. I'm not in my regular studio right now, so I just had to put on the light. If I look a little red to anybody, sorry, I'm not in my normal spot right now. So just got a yellow light that's making me look like I'm Clifford the Big Red Dog here, Johnny Mac. But that's still I'm still thinking about the comment of how good Kenny Gainwell looked, and then I think back to what I saw from him in the preseason games, John. I mean, at least that first preseason game on those first couple of drives, I wonder how big of a role he's going to have this year. I wonder if he might have a comparable role to Barkley. Is that possible?
No, I don't think so. And that's what, but I do think like 2 minute.
Will they use any 21 personnel?
They did have one rep I saw with Kenny and Will Shipley on the field at the same time. Saquon wasn't in team drills. I have seen them use Saquon and Kenny rarely at the same time. Typically, ironically, it was Saquon as the decoy to get the ball to Kenny. Few times, not a lot. You might see it to try to get one of the two into space. But yeah, they like Kenny Gainwell. To me, the 2 minute offense is going to be key. I think Kenny might be a better 2 minute player than Saquon. Now, 4 minute, I know people are going to lose their minds. I'm sorry. I'm not the one who thinks he's Jim Brown. He's not. He's just a good player. Saquon, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And 4 minute, yeah. I mean, he's going to be the guy. 2 minute, I'm just saying. Well, let's see. I think they'll start with Saquon.
I wonder if they come out slow with Saquon because they want to. I mean, really, you want Saquon late in the year, right? That would be the thinking. And you look at how many snaps and the injury history and all of those things. And it'll be interesting to see what they do. I regret to inform our listeners, though, John. You are winning. You are moving me a little bit off that Saquon Barkley hill.
I'm not going off this.
No, I know you're not, but you're shedding light on the other side of the conversation that most fans don't have, where it's just, we signed Saquon, it's going to be great. And your side is making more and more sense to me. That's all. It's not that you're pulling me off the hill.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a role. I guarantee you.
I think that's a given, yeah.
No, I'm talking about Kenny. Kenny's going to have a role. It's just a matter of how big it is. Obviously, right. Saquon's going to be the number one back. I'm not saying he's not, but Kenny's going to have a role. And, the better he performs, the more that role will increase. On the other hand, if he makes, poor play, it might go in the negative direction. But the coach trusts him. I think Kellen Moore is quickly growing to trust him.
Yeah. I think Jalen trusts him.
Oh, Jalen. Well, Jalen loves Kenny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the quarterback trusts him.
It's a good question here from Sliger. Can Gainwell pass protect worth a damn?
No.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Just too small, right? Just doesn't have the size, doesn't have the.
Well, he's bigger than people think. He's about 200 pounds. And that's why they use him in the red zone. They have in the past because they had nobody else, but now they have a big back in Saquon. So he's bigger than I think people think. He's short, that type of situation. So same thing with Darren Sproles, who was really short. And people would say, he's small. He's not small. He's short. He's actually had one of the most powerful lower bodies of anybody in the NFL. But, yeah, I mean, most running backs aren't asked to do it in college. It's very rare that you have anybody who's good at pass protection as a running back now. And they generally learn it at the professional level. And Saquon's one of the better ones in pass protection. And that's one of the big advantages he has over Kenny. And maybe of all the plays he made today, that might have been his best in the coaching staff's mind, because he did pick up a blitz and he hasn't been good at it. So you could tell he was feeling it, what kind of day he was having, because he's even picking up the blitz.
Good comment here, John. I got to pull it up for you. You're going to like it. Twiz says, John must have to pay for the Saquon jerseys. I can assure you all, Johnny Mac will not be purchasing the Saquon Barkley jerseys that are up for giveaway, but that's a funny take there, Twiz. Appreciate you being here, brother. And then one other comment, John, before we move into the tight ends that I want to bring up. I will show you, John, what an educated Philadelphia Eagle fan looks like. If I can find the dang comment. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Here it is. Raul says, I've been following J-Mac loyally since 2016. I appreciate you, brother. That's good stuff right there, Johnny Mac. Somebody's been following you since 16. That's 9 years, 8 years, my man. That's a lot of that's a knowledgeable Eagle fan right there, Johnny Mac, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
You know, that I think, you know, people who do listen to the show, listen to me over the years on the radio. I do think, you know, that's what I pride myself on. I do think the listeners are get a real good a real good education on the team and understand the team better than most. But, you know, for those with Kenny, I mean, I encourage you to look at the other guys who were there, because you're going to see the same stuff. You know, it was a really good practice.
Good stuff, John. One super chat before we move into the tight ends. Jason, sorry, I missed this, brother. It was 10, 15 minutes ago. I hope you're still in here so we can give you a response on the air. If not, I'll follow up with you about it later. But Jason 18 drops $10. Thank you, man. We appreciate that. And he's also a channel member. So thanks for being a channel member, Jason. He says, what players that are NFL players get cut on Eagles, i.e. cornerbacks, and what players that they play roster games with, do you think? I think he's saying there, what players you get cut that are worth something, and then what players do you think they'll play some games with? That's a good question, John. What do you think they'll do with that?
Well, we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show. They've liberalized the roster rules over the past couple of years to a number of ways that you can manipulate things a little bit more easier than you could in the past, which to me, I don't like. I think it eliminates some of the strategy for the GMs, and I think that's one of the advantages the Eagles had. You know, whether it's expanding the practice squad to 16, allowing veterans on the practice squad, you're allowed to put on guys on injured reserve now and bring them back and designate them to return before the initial 53. So that's new, and that makes things a little bit easier. So all these different tools are at Howie Roseman's disposal. I always said, and I said it yesterday, I'll say it again today, you know, waiver wires at the initial cut down, one of the most overrated things in the NFL. Fan bases all across the country seem to forget year to year. They think they're going to lose multiple players on waivers. You're not. If you're a really good team, and the Eagles are a really good team, you might lose 3 on a bad year. You know, very rarely would it ever go above that number. Because remember, other teams are working with their young players the entire spring, the entire summer, and they want to work with them, continue to work with them, and put them on their practice squad versus bringing in a guy who's been somewhere else and is starting from scratch. So the fear of the waiver wire is one of those things that I try to, you know, talk people off the ledge every year. You're probably going to get guys through waivers more often than not, no matter who you're thinking about. You can probably get them through waivers. Not always. Generally, guys who get picked up on waivers are players that other teams liked in the draft. And they say, oh, we just missed him. Let's take a shot at him. And, they might bring him in, keep him for a couple weeks and cut him anyway. But so we're not talking about difference-making players, but for the Eagles in cornerbacks, you're talking about guys like Eli Ricks and Josh Jobe and Zach McPherson. Of that group, they could probably keep one, and the other two have to go through waivers. And if they get through waivers, you can get them on the practice squad. If they can't, you tip your cap and you move on. But, we're not talking about difference-making players, obviously. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep over it. But from the standpoint of who they will play roster tricks with, it's generally about vested veterans. Veterans don't have to go through, vested guys don't have to go through waivers at this time of year. So if you want to keep Nick Gates, a guy they just picked up as a backup offensive lineman, now you have to have a good relationship with the player, but you might say, hey, Nick Gates, we need you. You're a big part of our plan, but we're concerned about losing Dylan McMahon on waivers. Maybe Howie knows. Howie has more information than we do. So maybe Howie knows Washington loved Dylan McMahon. And if he puts him on waivers, he might lose him. So Nick Gates is going to help you this year more than Dylan McMahon. But you don't have to put Nick Gates through waivers. And if you have a good relationship with him, you could say, hey, Nick, hang out in the hotel. We're going to bring you back. We're going to elevate you for 3 games. And when the time comes, we're going to put you on the 53. And usually by that point, the NFL being what it is, somebody else gets hurt and you got a roster spot and everything works out and everybody lives happily ever after. So that's kind of the tricks of the trade when it comes to the more liberalized roster rules and the ability to keep veteran players. If you're concerned about losing somebody on waivers, you keep them. And that's why the Eagles kept Eli Ricks last year. Mekhi Gardner actually outplayed him on a day-to-day basis, but the Eagles thought they could get Mekhi Gardner through waivers and were concerned because people had Eli getting the pick 6 in Baltimore on film that somebody might claim him. Ultimately, they got Mekhi Gardner through waivers anyway. They kept him on the practice squad the entire year. He actually got elevated late in the season. And they kept both. Would they have gotten Eli Ricks through waivers? Nobody knows, probably, but nobody knows. But yeah, people worry way too much about waivers. Anyway. You're muted, Zander.
Good breakdown there, Johnny Mac. 18. Thank you for the super chat, man. We appreciate that very much. Good stuff there from Johnny Mac, who broke down that answer pretty well. John, let's talk tight end, man. Do they have enough depth at tight end, do you think?
No, not right now. I mean, they got 2 tight ends that are guaranteed to make the team, and that's it. And then you're talking
Calcaterra, you're still kind of hoping for it, right? I mean, the guy's not.
Oh, he's gonna. I mean, there's no doubt. He's a
solid player, but he hasn't done anything in real life. He
hasn't. He hasn't. Yeah. He's got 9, whatever it is, 9 receptions, 9 career
in 2 years.
receptions.
Yeah,
but I mean, he's 100%er. He's not. There's no danger of him not.
Yeah, right. No, team. I see.
Yeah. And they like him, and the coaching staff likes him. And I think Kellen likes him, and obviously they expect bigger things with a bigger role. And we'll see how after that, it's EJ Jenkins, who has done some nice things. People have probably noticed him in the preseason. Big 6'7", 245-pound guy, played receiver in college and shifted to tight end. So more of a flex receiver than a blocker. But he's really gifted as a receiver. I think the Eagles could use a blocking tight end, but then there's Alberto. I don't, I don't know how you could expect anything out of him. I feel bad, but he showed little signs. Albert's like 6'5", 6'6", 260, and he ran a 4.49. So that's what everybody's enamored by. And he had this little window in Denver where he showed a little bit as a pass catcher, and everybody was enamored and said maybe he can turn it into something. And it just hasn't worked out. And I can't imagine how he makes this team, but you got to keep 3. If your offensive coordinator is Kellen Moore, you got to keep 3. And then you go from Armani Rogers, who they recently picked up, and he was a quarterback in college, so they're going the Tyree Jackson route with him. He's a quarterback at UNLV and transitioning to being a tight end. So again, it's more receiver than blocker. And then Kevin Folish is a New Haven guy, kind of just picked him up as a camp guy. I can't see him being relevant. That might have surpassed wide receiver as being a more needy position because CJ Uzama didn't work out. And he didn't play well, so I get it. He was a really good player in Cincinnati when they made their run to the Super Bowl. He was a really good player. And that's why I always say guys don't stay in a stasis. They decline, and he declined pretty rapidly, both with the Jets and the Eagles. And unfortunately, it didn't work out.
You think Kellen Moore, John, his offense will have a bigger role for the tight ends this year? Mostly Dallas Goedert, but do you think it will or not really? We've talked about this before, but just some clarity on this. Do you think that the tight ends will have a bigger role in this offense in the passing game than they have in the past?
I do, from the standpoint of, he's got a history of utilizing, as I said,
Right.
12 personnel, 2 tight end packages, and he usually likes to get guys involved as receivers. So I do think Calcaterra's got a chance to spike a little bit, 30, 40 catch guy, maybe in that range. But, it's so difficult for Kellen Moore. In some ways, I feel sorry for Kellen because the expectations are so high, and he's got to get the football to so many people. And it's just never going to live up to people's expectations because there is only one football. And, I'm not criticizing you, but I mean, I've heard that question a lot. Well, the tight end's got to get more involved. Well, at what point do you have a 1,400-yard receiver?
Right.
Everybody wants Devontae to have a career year. So that means he's got to be at 1,200. Dallas has got to have a career year. Grant's got to get involved. Jim Brown's got to get involved. Now we're talking about Kenny Gainwell it's the old adage of a good problem to have. That's what coaches always says. It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have. But in that phrase, good problem is the word problem. And when you add the expectations of what people expect from all these players, it's just not realistic. The world needs role players. And, the running backs and the tight ends on this offense are role players. And I think people need to scale back their expectations from that standpoint.
Good stuff, John, there. I'd agree with you, man. There's only one ball, and boy, there's a lot of guys we're trying to get involved in this thing. Kellen Moore, John, has quite the task. That's one of my favorite Johnny Mack-isms, by the way, is when you say somebody has a good problem, the word problem, I don't know if that's a Johnny Mackism, if you could call it that, but you do say it a lot, and I love that. It's a great perspective on it. You don't hear people say that, so that's one of my favorites that you say. John, we're going to get to our next commercial break, and we're going to do our stock up, stock down on the players in training camp. And by the way, John, I want to include coaches in this. Nick, Kellen, Vic, and maybe the position coaches if you want to go there. I don't think you will. Maybe you will, though. But it's all up for grabs for stock up, stock down. And we'll do all that next on Birds 365. Hit that like button, everybody. 104 likes. We got to get those likes in for Johnny Mack tonight, everybody. He worked real hard at training camp, doing multiple shows a day here on JAKIB Sports to keep us all informed on this football team. So hit that like button up to 104. I want to get at least 150 on the show today. Hit that like button. We'll be right back on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Wednesdays at Birds 365, a nightcap edition here, wrapping up Eagles training camp. If you can believe it, training camp has come and it has gone, and we are now moving into preparation for the regular season. Eagles will continue to work at camp, but the reporters are no longer given the same access. So that's what signals the end, more for us than the Eagles, but it does signal the end of our extensive coverage of training camp. Now we're going to do our stock up, stock down, Johnny Mack. Let's start with stock down, man. Let's go negative first before we go positive. Are you ready to go stock down, Johnny Mack, with me?
Yeah, the stock up, stock down stuff. I mean, I think the stock up, like, I think it's easy to say AJ, so I'm not.
You can't go stock up on. How much higher can his stock
No,
get?
that's what I'm. No,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to explain to people. I
Yeah.
I don't like doing that. So I want to explain the default setting of
Okay, got it.
AJ's good, Devontae's good, et cetera. Lane Johnson's good, et cetera, et cetera. Stock down, I would have to start with Tyler Steen. I mean, there's a guy who entered training camp with the starting right guard position, took every first team rep. I think people forget until he got hurt, which was like day 3 or day 4 in practice. And, he got Wally pipped, basically. He missed 8 days, probably came back too soon, was limping around. And by that point, Mekhi Becton had already taken the job, essentially, which gives you an indication that the Eagles weren't very high on him to begin with. Otherwise, he would have been given a better opportunity to compete. So I think from where he started to where he is now, and he's again on the injured list with an ankle injury, I would have to start with Tyler Steen. Ironic, the past couple days, Anaya Smith has been showing some life, at least. Made a nice one-handed catch today. But overall, his spring and summer have been really bad as a whole. And I still think he's going to make the team if he makes one play in the game against the Vikings. Because Howie doesn't want to cut a 5th-round pick. So he might get the Shelton Gibson treatment, who had a bad camp back in the day, and the Eagles kept him anyway. But he has not performed well. And you know how many people were hyped up about Anaya Smith back in the spring because he was a skill position player from an SEC team. And people kind of knew him and remembered some of the plays he made in college. And a real slow start for him. I'll also go rookie Cooper DeJean because, mainly the injury set him back. You were talking about a potential day 1 starter, and I think that was the Eagles' plan. Day 1 starter, Cooper DeJean in the slot. I really think that was their plan, and they're not. I don't think they're going to be able to get to that position to Green Bay. So, we're talking about stock down in training camp. I don't think it's long-term stock down. I think ultimately they'll get to that point. But I think if you're talking about training camp, I got to put him in that category. What are we doing? 5? I got to go Kenny Pickett.
I like that one.
A lot of it is, the Eagles, he's going to be the backup quarterback. But, from the standpoint of what people saw, what people think, his stock is down. Talk about those backup reps all the time. They tend to be ugly, and they've certainly been ugly. And he's been a part of it. Like we said, he had a chance to ignite the whole team with the Ben Sumeren throw, and he missed it. Poor Kenny Pickett.
Did he get any like big gasp when he did that?
I think everybody was like, "Oh!" It was one of those things because everybody was in awe of the move, and he's right out there wide open, just lost the ball to him. And then it would have been up to Ben to make the catch. I don't know if Ben would have made the catch, but he didn't get it.
I think he would have made the catch. If he burned that guy, you could tell he was feeling it in the moment. I think
maybe. So I think Kenny, and then, CJ would have been a good candidate, but he got cut. So I can't use him anymore. CJ Uzama. Matt Hennessy, I'm going to go with. I think
Ooh,
there
that's
was
a
a
good
lot of thought that, you know what, if Tyler Steen doesn't work out, Matt Hennessy's played in this league and he played at a pretty high level before a couple of knee injuries with Atlanta, and maybe he's healthy and maybe he can be the Stefan Wisniewski and hold down the fort. And yeah, he just, before he's hurt right now, he's got a back injury, but even before, he was not impressing to the point that the Eagles went out and got Max Sharping. Then they went out and got Nick Gates. Yeah, I would say Matt Hennessy has gone from potential starter to no shot for the 53-man roster.
Tough one there. Good 5 there, John. So you had you started out with Tyler Steen, which is an obvious one. He's on my 5 too. I'll rattle off my 5 when we're done here. You had Tyler Steen. You had Anais Smith. You had who am I missing? You had Matt Hennessy. You had
Matt. I was hoping you were keeping track because I was doing it off the top of my head.
I know.
I
forget the third one. I'm blanking on the third one.
I did Kenny. I did Anais. I did Matt Hennessy. I don't know. Somebody in the chat. Who else did I do?
Who did we do, everybody? We missed it.
I'm tired.
Yeah, Johnny Mac's been working hard. All right. Well, we missed it. We got to move on. Here's my 5. Tyler Steen is the only one that we had the same. I don't think the viewers are going to like mine, John. And remember, I'm not at practice, so I can only make a stock down based on what I've talked to John about and what I've read from the reporters. I got stock down on Devin White. I have stock down on him because I thought he was going to come in here and kind of show that he was at least the best linebacker in Philly. I thought when you look at the rest of that unit, I thought it would be pretty easy for a guy that was drafted where he was to be able to, if he is going to have a turnaround season, kind of come in and solidify himself. I don't think he showed much of a gap between him and the next linebacker, so I would go stock down on him. The next one, John, I'm going stock down on Saquon Barkley for a similar reason in that we didn't hear anything great. There's nothing really came out of camp that was like
the wheel route in New England.
One wheel route is not doing it for me. Yeah, I just thought there would be something that would come out that would jack fans up to the gills about Saquon Barkley, and I'm going stock down with him. You know, he took the injury here at the end of camp. Obviously, I don't think it's a big one, but I'm going to say stock down on Saquon Barkley for me right now. Not a big stock down, but a stock down for him. I'm also going Keely Ringo, Johnny Mac. I thought that's more of a me thing. I thought he was going to come in here and be a starter. I thought he was going to win the job over Isaiah Rodgers and kind of be fighting with the rookies, but it kind of seems like he didn't get that done. And he's been rotating still, so we'll see. But for me, I thought he was going to solidify himself above Isaiah Rodgers and kind of be duking it out with Quinyon Mitchell, and it didn't. That's not really how camp turned once Cooper went down. But I'm going to go stock down on Keely Ringo, and then I'll go Tyler Steen as well because I don't, I thought everybody thought he was going to be the starter. He took an injury, he went backwards, and now it's Mekhi Becton. So I only have 4 there. I didn't come up with a 5th. I was trying to think of a 5th to rattle off, but I don't know if anybody else was really stocked down. You could go Anais Smith. That would be a good one. But that would be overlapping. I was trying to not overlap with you. So Devin, Saquon, and Ringo and Steen are my 4 on the stock down.
Yeah. And I remember other than Kenny, Anais, Matt Hennessy, and
we're blank. We both have blanked on Johnny. Oh, Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was
I did say, Kenny, Kenny Pickett, Matt Hennessy, Anais Smith. Who else did I say? Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. But I gave 5.
You did give 5. I just don't remember the 5th one.
I should have thrown Orrin. I should have thrown.
I'm doing too many things over here.
I know. I should have thrown Orrin Burks in the mix, because he's a guy I thought was going to make the team, and now a lot of it was injury related in his case. but I don't think he's got much of a chance to make the team now. So he's another potential stock down guy. But yeah, I mean, it's certain guys, and CJ, like I said, would have been a perfect one, but they cut him today. Because there's the guy that when they signed him, I said, oh, that's probably an upgrade over Jack Stoll.
Right.
The guy's played a lot of football, played at a high level with a good team. But, how many times I say that on the show?
Yeah.
Guys, they don't stay the same. And when the descent starts, it generally happens pretty quickly.
Good stuff there. Sydney Family checks in. He says, come on, Bradbury, guys. I agree. I would say stock down on him, but I didn't think he was going to have
stock was up from where I think
right. You could make an argument it was up.
Yeah. I mean, it was like he wasn't even involved. And now the assumption was they were going to get rid of him, release him, trade him, whatever. And he's still here. He's still kicking. And I find it very hard to believe. I'll tell you this right now. Howie Roseman took it to this point. You really think he's just going to cut him? I don't believe that's going to happen. So if you can't trade him, he's going to kick that can down to the trade deadline. I find it very hard to believe he's going to go this far and then wake up on Tuesday morning and say, well, I'm cutting James Bradbury. I find that very hard to believe.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Good stuff there, John. Let's move into stock up, go to the more positive side of things. I think there's a lot of guys in this that, it would be harder to get this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not going with Jalen Hurts. So
put the guys that aren't going to be in. Jalen's not going to be in. A.J. Brown's not going to be in. Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. I hope it's obvious.
Yeah.
With certain guys it's never obvious.
That.
You're right. So, I'll start with the two guys obvious to me are Nakobe Dean stock back up after it was down. He was down. Now he's up, way up. Kenny Gainwell is one whose stock is up. Britton Covey, man, I hope they give that guy a shot. I just want people to see his route running. I want people to get to see his route running. He is killing people with his route running. Now, is that sustainable when there's 11 people on the field and he's getting, crash test Covey, as you guys call him? I don't know if it's sustainable, but I hope people get to see his route running. That's all I'll say about Britton. Sneaky stock up, Nick Gates. I think he's got a chance to make this team, especially with some of the injury issues inside on the offensive line. I think they want somebody, they were trying to find it with Hennessy. They were trying to find it with Sharping, and now I think they found it a little bit with Nick Gates to be at least serviceable if you need somebody to go in there. I think he's a stock up guy. Thomas Booker.
Ooh, I like that one.
He's had a great summer. I don't know. It's going to be difficult for him to make the team, but I think he's had a really great summer. Patrick Johnson. I don't know how the Eagles don't keep Patrick Johnson.
I think they're going to. I do. I think they're going to keep him.
They almost have to, but how do you keep 6 edge rushers? Because that's what you would have to do. And, maybe they manipulate things. And as we talked about, all those roster tricks. But, boy, that guy deserves to make the team. And then the secondary, there's a bunch of guys. Quinyon would be most notably. But, I mean, can you really say stock up for a first-round pick? I think you should.
No, he has never played on the field. I don't think you can.
I think you should because of his ability, his ability to handle what they've thrown at him, which is, to me, is ridiculous. And, again, if Sean decided that, you'd all run him out of town. But Big's big. And By the way, I love Vic, but that's insane what he's doing with Quinyon Mitchell. So those are some of the guys I think.
That's pretty good. You got Dean, Gainwell, Covey, Gates, Booker, Patrick Johnson. Those are pretty good. That's a good 6 right there. I'm going to start mine. I'm going to go Kellen Moore, John, a coach. I'm going to bring a coach into this. I think Kellen Moore stock up for sure. We came out of OTAs with a lot of questions with the Jalen Hurts comments that lingered. 95% new. Is this too much for the offense? And the offense had a great camp. By all means, Jalen Hurts had a great camp. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith had great camps. I'm going stock up on Kellen Moore. I think he's going to be the right fit for this offense. I think he's going to get to a more pro-style offense for Jalen, and I think that could really open up his game a little bit more when you add in his skill set and also, that type of an offense. So I'm really excited for this offense with Kellen Moore. I think he's probably the biggest stock up for me. The next stock up, I'm going defensive side, and I'm going to go Nakobe Dean. He's the easy one. You said Nakobe Dean, but I think it's pretty obvious why he's stock up. He kind of solidified himself, at least in the last couple of weeks, back at the top of the leaderboard for the cornerbacks or for the linebackers. Next one I'm going is a cornerback. I'm saying Isaiah Rodgers stock up. Looks like he might have solidified at least a spot on this defense where he's going to get some playing time. So I'll say stock up on Isaiah Rodgers. I think he had a good training camp, at least, from what was reported. It seems like he had a pretty good training camp. There was a couple good ones I saw in the chat that I would go as well. Where's my guy Ryan Dickerson?
I know somebody saw Cam Jurgen. I'm like, to me, Cam's like, I'm not putting him on the AJ Devontae Jalen level, but I didn't even worry about Cam Jurgen.
Yeah, right.
So that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, but you could argue that is a stock up. He is a first year center.
Yeah, I think to the outside world, it's more of a stock up. I agree with that. But to me personally, I never even. I've been saying that for weeks. I don't even question it. I mean,
Dickerson gives 5 good ones here, John. Nakobe, Covey. You gave Covey. Trevor Keegan, I think that's a great one. I mean, he's on the injury. He's injured right now, but I do think that was a good one. He played very good.
Yeah, he's been solid.
Tanner McKay, I think that's a fair stock
up. Yeah, Tanner's been good. I should have mentioned Tanner.
Kenny Gainwell. Those are good. Those are good ones there by Ryan Dickerson. Ryan, thanks for that, man. If anybody else wants to toss their stock ups in, I'll try and hit on them. Sydney Family checks in. He says Ajomo.
Ajomo is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a good summer.
Dean and Vic. I like those. Those are good, Sydney Family. That's a good list right there. I like those first 3, especially Ajomo, Hunt, and Booker. Johnny Mack gave you Booker. But Ajomo and Hunt, that's a good one. I would agree with the Jalix Hunt one too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not as, I'm more in tune with Vic. Yeah, he did okay.
Yeah, I know, but I was expecting like a full-on project. Like I think he's gonna. Maybe there's a chance he's got a role in this team this year. That's small, but
the backhanded Vic compliment. Yeah, he did better than I thought he'd do.
Vic is
from practice, he did better than I thought he'd do. Yeah, I think he's a project. I think he is what people thought he was. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what he was here for. He's got a lot of potential as a pass rusher. He's got to figure out everything else. And, like I said, if, the Eagles have their 4 penciled in pass rushers, Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, if they need a 5th, it's going to be Patrick Johnson. It's not going to be Jalix Hunt. Now they're going to keep him on the roster, obviously, because they have to.
There's any chance they move BG inside a little bit this year?
Oh yeah, he always plays a little bit inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very versatile. And it's going to be interesting when, again, NASCAR situations, as they call it in the NFL, when it's 3rd and long, 3rd and 10 plus. It's going to be interesting to see the 4 on the field for the Eagles in the front. Obviously, it's going to be, 3. So you're talking about the 4th guy. And it's going to be Huff, Sweat for the most part. Obviously, it's rotational position. Jalen Carter. And who's the 4th guy? It might be Brandon Graham inside. Might be Milton if you want to go more traditional, depending on what kind of season he has. But, and there's a lot more teams, and Vic is more willing to do some of that, have 4 just edge rushers on the field, and really go after people. Like Flores is coming in this week. He's famous for that. Like he'll just put 4 edge rushers in there. And, if you want to run it, go run it. So Vic is open to doing some different things like that maybe other guys weren't as competent to do. So that part's going to be interesting. I mentioned yesterday, and he did it again today. He had a package with Zach Vaughn as the only all-ball linebacker on the field, with Patrick Johnson as sort of a hybrid off-ball edge rusher. So, he's going to throw some unique looks out there.
Good stuff there, John. I think we missed a big one here. Slager says Trotter, 5th round question mark to a linebacker rotation.
Yeah, should have mentioned.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would agree with that. And I don't think that's Eagle colored glasses thing. I think he definitely had a stock up type of camp. A couple of our other guys in the chat put some good ones. Twiz the Jigga says Wilson, Dean, Axeman 2, Milton, Ben Van Sumeren. I would agree with Van Sumeren, and I would agree with Dean, Axeman. Milton's a good one. Wilson, I took him off my stock up list with the end of camp here.
Yeah, he had a good start and kind of leveled off.
Yeah.
And obviously now he's got a concussion, which is not his fault. But I'm it's more recency bias, when I'm doing stock up and stock down. So, guys have like at points, Kaylee Ringo looked like a stock up. Now I'd agree with you. Now he's a stock down. So, I mean, that's what it's like, a real stock. Might go up, might go down.
Right.
And that generally happens throughout camp. Like, today was the final practice of training camp, obviously. But, they're going to practice again. And when they practice when will they next be on the practice field? Probably Wednesday after cutdown day. Kenny Gainwell's not going to have the same practice he had today. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you.
Well, you said it was the best running back practice you've seen in 10
years. That's my point.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it, stock up, stock down. N'Kobe Dean is Sunday practice. He's not repeating that. So, that's the way it works. Ebbs and flows, as Nick says.
Yeah, good stuff, John. A couple players that the guys in the chat want an update on. I know we hit on one earlier, but we'll get to him again real quick. Just 15 minutes left to go here on our nightcap edition of Birds 365. Trevor Keegan, John, people want an update on where he is with the injuries and everything. Did you see anything more from him? Did you learn any more about the injury?
It's a hip injury. I mentioned him earlier. It's a hip injury. He left practice on Tuesday, looked in some pretty significant pain. So we were a little bit concerned. The positive is he was out there today, not practicing, but he watched the whole practice. So he's going to be out for a little bit, but it doesn't look serious. And yeah, he's done a good job, and he's not in danger of losing a roster spot or he's done a really solid job. So he's going to be on this team, and looked like it could be a little bit more serious, but the fact that they allowed him out there, that's always a good sign, because if there's anything serious, they're not going to allow you on the field to watch practice.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. We'll see what Trevor Keegan does. I'm high on him. I like him. I liked him from the draft, John. You told me to temper my expectations on a fifth, and you were right, by the way. He's a 5th round player, but I liked him when they picked him. I think he's going to be a guy who's here for a little bit, and he's in the Stoutland University. I think he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, he might be. I could see him being in the mix to be a starter next year, not this year, but next year. Because I don't. There's still questions about Mekhi Becton playing guard from my perspective. just, it's a difficult thing for him. He's a natural tackle.
Well, I
He's
said
so
that was
big.
one job on the National Football Show. I'm like, well, now we know who's playing guard. The next question is he going to be any good?
Yeah, I mean, well, he's going to be good at times because he's so powerful if he's out there. And if he gets his hand on people, he's going to be able to move some people around. But there's going to be other times where you have some of these really athletic, movement-based defensive tackles who get their pads low and can really explode through gaps. He's probably going to have problems with. So it's going to be some mixing and matching with that kind of stuff. I think people are going to be very happy with him on certain plays and very disappointed on other plays. But long term, Mekhi Becton's a tackle, not a guard.
Yeah.
And I either, and by the way, that's in Philadelphia or somewhere else. Long term, he's playing tackle, not guard.
Good stuff, John. The other guy people wanted an update on was Cooper DeJean, the rookie, mostly because he didn't have a good practice yesterday. And, people don't like to hear that. So he didn't have a good practice yesterday. How did he look today?
Well, he looked better than yesterday. It was pretty bad practice. And that's fine. I mean, A, he's a rookie. B, he's learning a new position. And, he struggled against some of the shiftier route runners, which shouldn't be a surprise because he doesn't have a ton of experience playing in the slot. So I think when it's bigger guys, he'll be having an easier time than if it's the small Welker, Edelman-like types. So maybe it comes down to, the matchup situation. And, Vic's willing to mix and match, and maybe it becomes a situation where, all right, the Cowboys are going to use CeeDee Lamb in the slot. Maybe that's a better, as weird as it sounds, because that's a really good player. But that's more of the receiver that he's used to dealing with from a traits perspective than the shifty guys, which he seemed to really struggle with. But he's going to be a good player. It's just a matter how quick the Eagles can get him there.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Let's get to our final commercial break. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Let me check on how many likes we're up to. 130 likes, 20 away, guys. Can we get 20 more likes for Johnny Mac? Get the 150 for me. John's been working hard, so we want to get to 150 likes. I
got to get to 150. I got a sore throat. I'm limping through to the finish line here.
Limping through. We got 10 minutes to go. Let's hit this break, Johnny Mac. We'll come back. We'll put a wrap on this nighttime Wednesday edition of Birds 365. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your greenhouse? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust, and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to the Birds 365, a Wednesday nightcap edition following the Eagles' final day of training camp. Can you believe it, everybody? Training camp has come and it is gone, and we are now in preparation for that opening day game in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where the Eagles will take on the Green Bay Packers. So we'll see how that goes. John, before I get to you, I want to welcome in our newest member, Johnny Mac. Ryan Dickerson becomes a member on the YouTube channel. We appreciate it, Ryan. You are officially entered to win a Saquon Barkley jersey this season. We're going to be giving away up to 20 of them, depending on how good Saquon does this year. We were a little gloomy on Saquon today. Didn't help the membership, but
by the way,
every time he gets 125, we're giving away a jersey. And if they go to the playoffs and the Super Bowl and he gets 125 in all those games, we're giving away a jersey to a channel member. So, Ryan, thanks for your support, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, our buddy BLG, where I'll throw some show business on the air. He's going to be on tomorrow at 9:20. So our usual Wednesday guest, or Mike Gill's going to be on at 8:20. BLG is going to be on 9:20. So I was just checking when I was texting with BLG here. I was just checking his description. And so this is not me. This is Brandon Gouton. With Saquon missing team drills, Kenny Gainwell took advantage of his extended first-team reps. The RB2 had his best practice by far this summer, looking effective as both a runner and a pass catcher. There were some drives where Gainwell was basically carrying the entire weight of the offense as Jalen Hurts targeted him again and again. 3 specific highlights: Gainwell breaking Devin White's ankles with a juke out in space after Hurts flipped him the ball. Gainwell lining up wide left, motioning to the backfield to line up next to Hurts and shotgun, then leaking out right after the snap to get open for the touchdown catch. These are the plays I was mentioning. And Gainwell making a challenging grab in the back right corner of the end zone, getting a butt cheek down for another touchdown. The offense was fired up about that score. That was Kenny Gainwell's day. Saquon hasn't made that many plays in 15 practices. It's not my fault. Blame Kellen Moore.
I'm a little concerned. I got to be honest. I'm a little concerned, John. I really am.
Well, Kenny was great.
Well, I know, but you would think you would have heard at least some of those types of reports.
That's kind of my point. It's like, because I would say, well, and you've heard me say it on this show numerous times. Now in the modern game, like, you can't really gauge running backs in practice. And I would say that you ask me every day, were there any Saquon plays? And I'm like, oh, not really. And I would give the defense for the people that think I hate the poor guy because he's the nicest guy in the world. I do not hate him. And I'd say, yeah, it's not really the time. And then all of a sudden Kenny shows up and he's making plays all over the place. Like, if he can make plays, why can't he make plays?
It's the Kenny Gainwell season coming up, Johnny Mac.
I don't know about that. As I said,
Kenny Gainwell show, baby. It's Kenny Gainwell's world. We're just living.
You're gonna have to give away Kenny Gainwell jerseys, 14 jerseys. But yeah, I mean, he was making plays all over the place. And if he can make plays all over the place, why can't others make plays all over the place? You know, the juking out in space, the ghosting people, that's something Saquon can't do.
Good stuff. Ryan Dickerson, who just became a member, checks in. Longtime listener, hard to catch the live shows during the day. Happy to support the channel. Keep up the great work, Zander and Johnny Mac. Ryan, thank you, man. That's appreciated very much. Appreciate you for being here. Slager says, quick question, J-Mac. Do you think Trotter Jr. is one of those guys like Luke Kuechly, I think you said, who can tell you the play that's coming and that's his superpower?
Whoa. That's a Hall of Fame player. Even though he retired early. Jeremiah Trotter is very instinctive. Is he going to be Luke Kuechly? Probably not. But yeah, he's a very smart linebacker. Nakobe's a very smart linebacker. Very smart engineering student. So they're both, when I look at linebackers in the modern game, that's what I want. I want instinctive guys more than just pure athletes. Because, you know, to me, if you're playing linebacker, and TJ was a good example of this, because people would always criticize his speed, you know, and you're a 4.4 guy versus a 4.7 guy. Well, if you take one wrong step, that 4.4 is obliterated at linebacker. It's meaningless. Whereas if you're instinctive, like TJ, or, you know, in the case of Luke Kuechly, just off the charts good, you know, you make up for a lot of things. Ball steps are terrible for linebackers. And I think Nakobe and Trot are the two guys who have a chance because they're instinctive. And I think there is a chance that he gets on the field for meaningful snaps this year. Jeremiah Trotter. I know Nakobe's going to be on there. But I do think by the second half of the season, I would not be surprised at all if he's getting major snaps. But I don't have a lot of confidence in Devin White. Devin will get every opportunity. But I've just seen too much Tampa tape to believe in it.
Vic is in the back right now. He's like, the beat reporters are out of here. Let me craft my proper defense now. Let me get Nakobe Dean at the starter. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Great show tonight, man. We appreciate the work you did all through training camp. I don't think you guys hear that enough. We really get a good update on this team. Me, but also all of our listeners, you know, because the beat reporters go down there every day. And, you know, a lot of people like to shit on you guys, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't know much about this team if it wasn't
a lot of people like to shit on us. But, and by the way, with the Devin stuff, Devin's going to start week 1 with Nakobe. That's my prediction. They're both going to start. I think Zach Bond is the guy taking the step back.
Will you also project that it'll be the second straight year of Devin White getting benched in midseason?
I do think ultimately he will be benched sometime during the season. And that's when I think Trotter, if he continues, you know, he's got to continue to play well behind the scenes and do what he needs to do. But I do have high hopes for him because he's an instinctive player, and I think Vic will see that.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. We appreciate it, man. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Hit that like button on the way out. Let me see if we got our 150, by the way. We got 145. Come on, man. I need 5 more likes, everybody. I need 5 likes before I can wrap this sucker up. 5 likes. We got 202 still in the chat. I know 5 of you have not liked the show, and you'll like the show. Johnny Mac needs some sleep, everybody. Hit me with the 5 likes, will you? Come on. I know they're coming. Let me refresh. Nothing, Johnny Mac. All right, Johnny Mac, good show, man. I'm upset that we didn't get to 150. We actually just lost the like. We went to 144, but somebody got mad at me, I guess, for asking for it. But that's all right, Johnny Mac. Good show, man. We'll catch you in the morning. All right, brother. Mike Gill and BLG in the morning. So good stuff there.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Right.
Thanks for listening.
Everybody. Thanks for being here.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.